Okay, we'll just do the normal thing. Alan, you can read the first paragraph. I'll start out with the Sanskrit and translation. And then so you can read that. We'll go paragraph by paragraph. Oops. Okay, text 12. Tatshradadana munio jnana vairagya yutaya pasyantyatmani chatmanam bhaktya shruta grihatya. Synonyms: tat, that; shraddhadana, seriously inquisitive; munia, sages; gyan, knowledge; vairagya, detachment; yuktaya, well equipped with; pasyanti, see; atmani, within himself; cha, and; atmanam, the Paramatma; bhaktya, in devotional service; shruta, the Vedas; gritaya, well received. Translation: the seriously inquisitive sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes that absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from Vedanta Shruti. Go ahead, Al.
The purport is, the absolute truth is realized in full by the process of devotional service to Lord Vasudeva, or the personality of Godhead, who is the full-fledged absolute truth. Brahman is his transcendental bodily effulgence, and Paramatma is his partial representation. As such, Brahma or Paramatma realization of the absolute truth is but a partial realization. There are four different types of human beings: the karmis, the yanis,
Gyanis, yeah.
and yogis, and the devotees. The karmis are the materialistic, whereas the other three are transcendental. The first class transcendentalists are the devotees who have realized the Supreme Lord person. The second class transcendentalists are those who have partially realized the plenary portion of the absolute person. And the third class transcendentalists are those who are barely realized the spiritual focus of the absolute person. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures, the Supreme Person is realized by the spiritual focus of the absolute person, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita and other realized. Sorry, I lost my space. By devotional service, by which, backed by full knowledge and detachment from material association. We have already discuss the point of the devotional services, followed by knowledge and detachment from material association. As Brahman and Paramatma realization are imperfect realizations of the absolute truth. So the meaning of realizing Brahman and Paramatma, the paths of and yoga, Yana and yoga, are also imperfect means of realizing the absolute truth. Devotional service, which is based on the foreground of full knowledge combined with detached from material association, in which is fixed by the royal reception of the Vedanta Shruti, is the only perfect method by which the serious, inquisitive students can realize the absolute truth. Devotional service is not, therefore, meant for the less intelligent class of transcendentalists. There are three classes of devotees, namely first, second, and third class. The third class devotees, or the neophytes, who have no knowledge and are not detached from the material association, but who are simply attracted by the preliminary process of worshiping the deity in the temple, are called material devotees. Material devotees are more attached to the material benefits than transcendentalists.
Transcendental profit.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, I lost my space. Therefore, one has to make definite progress from the position of material devotional service to the second class devotional position. In the second class position, the devotee can see four principles in the devotional line, namely the personality of Godhead, his devotees, the ignorant, and the envious. One has to raise himself at least to the stage of second class devotee and thus become eligible to know the absolute truth.
Okay, go ahead. So,
A third class devotee therefore has to receive the instructions of devotional service from the authoritative sources of Bhagavata. The number one Bhagavata is the established personality of devotee, and the other Bhagavatam is the message of Godhead. The third class devotee therefore has to go to the personality of devotee in order to learn the instructions of devotional service. Such a personality of devotee is not a professional man who earns his livelihood by the business of Bhagavatam. Such a devotee must be a representative of Sukadeva Goswami, like Sutta Goswami, and must preach the cult of devotional service for the all-around benefit of all people. A neophyte devotee has very little taste for hearing from authorities. Such a neophyte devotee makes a show of hearing from the professional man to satisfy his senses. This sort of hearing and chanting has spoiled the whole thing. So one should be very careful about the faulty process. The holy messages of Godhead, as inculcated in the Bhagavad Gita or in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, are undoubtedly transcendental subjects, but even though they are so, such transcendental matters are not to be received from the professional man who spoils them as the serpent spoils milk simply by the touch of his tongue.
a sincere devotee must therefore be prepared to hear Vedic literature like the Upanishads, Vedanta, and other literatures left by the previous authorities or Goswamis for the benefit of his progress. Without hearing such literatures, one cannot make actual progress, and without hearing and following the instructions, the show of devotional service becomes worthless and therefore a sort of disturbance in the path of devotional service. Unless, therefore, devotional service is established on the principles of Shruti, Smriti, Purana, and Pancharatra authority, the make show of devotional service should at once be rejected. An unauthorized devotee should never be recognized as a pure devotee. By assimilation of such messages from the Vedic literatures, one can see the all-pervading localized aspect of the personality of Godhead within his own self constantly. This is called samadhi. Text 13. Atta pumbir dvijashtre sravanashrama vibhagasa shvanustitasya dharmasya samsiddhi haritoshanam. This is a really important verse. This is a goal of devotional service. Synonyms: atta, so, pumbi, by the human being, dvijashtre, best among the twice born, varnashram, and the institution of four castes and four orders of life, vibhagasa, by the vision of svanustitasya, of one's own prescribed duties, dharmasya, occupational, samsiddhi, the highest perfection, hari, the personality of Godhead, toshanam, pleasing. Translation: O best among the twice born, is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging duties prescribed for one's own occupation, according to caste divisions and orders of life, is to please the personality of Godhead. Go ahead, Alan.
The purport is, the human society all over the world is divided into the four castes and four orders of life. The four castes are the intelligent caste, the marital caste, the productive caste, and the laborer caste. These castes are classified in terms of one work and qualification and not by birth. Then again, there are four orders of life, namely the student life, the householder's life, the retired, and the devotional life. In the best interest of human society, there must be such division of life. Otherwise, no social institution can grow in a healthy state. And in each and every one of the above mentioned divisions of life, the aim must be to place the supreme authority of the personality of Godhead. The institutional function of human society is known as the system of what's that?
Varnashram Dharma.
Which is quite natural for the divine life. Wait, for the divine, for the civilized life. The Varnasrama institution is constructed to enable one to realize the absolute truth. It is not by artificial denomination of one's division over another. When the aim of life is self-realization of the absolute truth, is missed by too much attachment for
Indriya Priti.
or sense gratification. As already discussed hereinbefore, the institution of the Varnasrama is utilized by selfish men and to pose an artificial predominance over the weak section. In the Kali Yoga, or in the age of coral, this is artificial dominance is already occurred by the saner section of the people known it will well that the divisions of the castes and orders of life are meant. Can you scroll down? Okay, for smooth social intercourse and high thinking self-realization, and not for any other purpose.
Go ahead and read the rest of it.
Herein, the statement of the Bhagavatam is the highest aim of life, or the highest perfection of the institution of the Varnasrama Dharma, is to cooperate jointly for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 4:13.
Text 14. Tasmade kanamanasa bhagavan sattvatam pati shrotavya kirtatavyascha dhyaya pujasyascha nityada. Synonyms. Tasmat, therefore, ekana, by one, manasa, attention of the mind, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Sattvatam, of the devotees, Pati, protector, Shrotavya, is to be heard, Kirtatavya, to be glorified, Cha, and Dhyaya, to be remembered, Puja, to be worshipped, Cha, and Nityada, constantly. Translation. Therefore, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. Go ahead, Zoe.
If realization of the absolute truth is the ultimate aim of life, it must be carried out by all means. If any one of the above-mentioned castes and orders of life, the four processes, namely glorifying, hearing, remembering, and worshiping, are general occupations. Without these principles of life, no one can exist. Activities of the living being involve engagements in these four different principles of life, especially modern society. All activities are more or less dependent on hearing and glorifying. Any man from any social status becomes a well-known man in human society with a very short time if he is simply glorified truly or falsely in the daily newspapers. Sometimes political leaders of a particular party are also advertised by newspaper propaganda, and by such a method of glorification, an insignificant man becomes an important man within no time. But such propaganda by false glorification of an unqualified person cannot bring about any good, either for the particular man or for the society. There may be some temporary reactions to such propaganda, but there are no permanent effects. Therefore, such activities are a waste of time. The actual object of glorification is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has created everything manifested before us. We have broadly discussed this fact in the beginning as the Jamati Asya Sloka of this Bhagavatam. The tendency to glorify others or hear others must be turned to the real object of glorification, the Supreme Being, and that will bring happiness.
Yeah, unfortunately, nobody's interested in glorifying the person that's the only person that's worthy of glorification, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everybody wants to glorify some politician or some sports star, some rock musician or some actor or somebody else besides Krishna. Anybody, it doesn't matter besides Krishna. Nobody's interested in glorifying the actual person who's worthy of being glorified, because everybody's interested in their own sense gratification, bodily or extended. Text 15. Yadanotyasina yukta karma granti nirbandhanam chandanti kovidas tasya kona kuryat kataratim. Synonyms: yat, which anudya, remembrance, asina, sword, yukta, being equipped with, karma, reactionary work, granti, knot, nirbandhanam, interknit, chindanti, cut, kobida, intelligent, tasya, his, ka, who, na, not, kuryat, shall do, kata, messages, ratim, attention, translation, with sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work, karma, by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? Go down and read the first one.
Sorry, I
Yes.
had a phone call. I had hung up on him. The
Oh, okay.
contact of the spiritual spark with material elements create a knot which must be cut if one's to be liberated from the actions and reactions of fruitful work. Liberation means freedom of the cycle of reactionary work. This liberation automatically follows for one who constantly remembers the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead. This is because of all the activities of the Supreme Lord, his Lila, are transcendental to the modes of the material energy. They are all attractive spiritual activities, and therefore constant association with the spiritual activities of the Supreme Lord gradually spiritualize the conditioned soul and ultimately severes the knot of material bondage.
Liberation from material bondage is therefore a byproduct of devotional service. Attainment of spiritual knowledge is not sufficient to ensure liberation. Such knowledge must be overcoated with devotional service so that ultimately the devotional service alone predominates. Then liberation is made possible. Even the reactionary work of the fruitive workers can lead one to liberation when it is overcoated with devotional service. Karma overcoated with devotional service is called karma yoga. Similarly, empirical knowledge overcoated with devotional service is called jnana yoga. But pure bhakti yoga is independent of such karma and jnana because it alone can not only endow with one liberation from conditional life, but also award one the transcendental loving service of the Lord.
Gyan's pronounced actually,
Yeah.
it's just like a G, Gyan.
Jnana,
Like
Yawn.
G-Y, Gyan.
Yawn.
Gyan
Yeah.
and karma.
Jnana.
Trust me, it took me a
Gyan.
while. It took me a while to figure it out.
Yeah,
It's Gyan. It's like
yeah.
Gyan. That's how you pronounce
Oh
it.
wow. Okay.
Therefore, any sensible man who is above the average man with a poor fund of knowledge must constantly remember the personality of Godhead by hearing about him, by glorifying him, by remembering him, and by worshiping him always, without cessation. That is the perfect way of devotional service. The Goswamis of Vrindavan, who were authorized by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach the bhakti cult, rigidly followed this rule and made immense literatures of transcendental science for our benefit. They have chalked out the ways for all classes of men in terms of the different castes and orders of life in pursuance of the teachings of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and similar other authoritative scriptures. That's why we say before they give a class, Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Shrapitam Yena Bhustai Swayam Rupa Kadamayan Dadati Swapadandikam. When will Srila Rupa Goswami, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? See, these Goswamis, especially Rupa and Sanatana and Jiva Goswami, have chalked out the path of devotional service into a science, even all the way up to the most intimate relationships with Krishna, the ecstatic emotions that you can have for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It breaks it all down and gives a step-by-step method of attaining that position of becoming either a friend or a parent or the son or the lover of or the servant of Krishna. And that's what the Goswamis gave to us. It's all based on the Bhagavatam, and it's according to the desire of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. He is Radha and Krishna combined. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahayanya. He is none other than Radha and Krishna. Text 16. Śikṣāṣtaka. This is what this next series of verses here is what Visheshika Prabhu from text 16 to 22 are the most important verses in the Bhagavatam, I think. They're very, very concise and easy to understand messages that are the essence of the Bhagavatam. And Vaisheshika, every morning before he gives class, he recites these like 5 or 6 verses, beginning with text 16. Śikṣāṣtaka Shadadanasya Vasudeva Katarushi Syamahet Sevya Vipra Punyatirtana Sevanat. Synonyms: Śikṣāṣtaka, one who is engaged in hearing Shadadanasya with care and intention, Vasudeva, in respect to Vasudeva. Kata, the message, Ruchi, affinity. Syat is made possible, Mahat Sevaya, by service rendered to pure devotees. Vipra, twice born, Punya Tirtha, who are those who are cleansed of all vice. Nisevanat, by service. Translation: O twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Go ahead, Alan.
The conditioned life of the living being is caused by his revolting against the Lord. There are men called devas, or godly living beings, and there are men called asuras, or demons, who are against the authority of the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the 16th chapter, a vivid description of the asuras is given, in which it is said that the asuras are put into lower and lower states of ignorance, life after life, and so sink to the lower animal forms and have no information of the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These asuras are gradually rectified to God consciousness by the mercy of the Lord's liberated servitors in different countries, according to the supreme will. Such devotees of God are very confidential associates of the Lord, and when they come to save human society from the dangers of godlessness, they are known as the powerful incarnations of the Lord, as sons of the Lord, as servants of the Lord, or as associates of the Lord, but none of them falsely claim to be God themselves. This is a blasphemy declared by the asuras, and the demoniac followers of such asuras also accept pretenders of God's God or his incarnation. In his revealed scriptures, there is definite information of an incarnation of God. No one should be accepted as God or as an incarnation of God unless he is confirmed by the revealed scriptures.
Okay, so
The servants of God are to be respected as God by the devotees who actually want to go back to Godhead. Such servants of God are called Mahatmas or Tirthas. Is that like Mahatma Gandhi, or is it comes from that?
yeah, it means great soul, Mahatma.
Okay. And they preach according to particular time and place. The servants of God urge people to become devotees of the Lord. They never tolerate being called God. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was God himself, according to the indication of the revealed scriptures, but he played the part of a devotee. People who knew him to be God addressed him as God, but he used to block his ears with his hands and chant the name of Lord Vishnu. He strongly protested against being called God, although undoubtedly he was God himself. The Lord behaves so to warn us against unscrupulous men who take pleasure in being addressed as God.
Yeah, Prabhupada says, you know, somebody says, I am God, I am moving the sun, I am moving the moon, and then he gets a toothache and he has to run to the dentist. The servants of God come to propagate God consciousness, and intelligent people should cooperate with them in every respect. By serving the servant of God, one can please God more than by directly serving the Lord. The Lord is more pleased when he sees that his servants are properly respected, because such servants risk everything for the service of the Lord, and so are very dear to the Lord. The Lord declares in Bhagavad Gita 1869 that no one is dearer to him than one who risks everything to preach his glory. By serving the servants of the Lord, one gradually gets the quality of such servants, and thus one becomes qualified to hear the glories of God. The eagerness to hear about God is the first qualification of a devotee eligible for entering the kingdom of God. Text 17. Shrinvatam swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana ridyantasto yabadarni vidinoti saritsatam. Synonyms. Shrinvatam, those who have developed the urge to hear the message of Swakata, his own words, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Punya, virtues, Shravana, hearing, Kirtana, chanting, Hridyantasta, within one's heart. He, certainly, Abhadrani, desire to enjoy matter, Vidunoti, cleanses, Surit, benefactor, Satam, of the truthful. Translation, Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Go ahead, Alan.
Messages of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, are non-different from him. Wherever therefore offenseless hearing and glorification of God are undertaken, it is to be understood that Lord Krishna is present there in the form of transcendental sound, which is as powerful as the Lord personally. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Śikṣāṣtaka declares clearly that the holy name of the Lord has all the potencies of the Lord, and that he has endowed his innumerable names with the same potencies. There is no rigid fixture of time, and anyone who chants the holy name with attention and reverence at his convenience, the Lord is so kind to us that he can present before us personally in the form of transcendental sound. But unfortunately, we have no taste for hearing and glorifying the Lord's name and activities. We have already discussed developing a taste of hearing and chanting the holy sound. It is done through the medium of service to the pure devotee of the Lord.
Yeah, why don't we have the taste for the holy name? Because we commit offenses. We're chanting offensively. And so Lord Chaitanya very much laments the fact that he commits offenses while chanting, and therefore he doesn't have any taste. Go ahead, Zoe.
The Lord is reciprocally respondent to his devotees. When he sees that a devotee is completely sincere in getting admittance to the transcendental service of the Lord, and has thus become eager to hear about him, the Lord acts from within the devotee in such a way that the devotee may easily go back to him. The Lord is more anxious to take us back into his kingdom than we can desire. Most of us do not desire at all to go back to Godhead. Only a very few men want to go back to Godhead. But anyone who desires to go back to Godhead, Sri Krishna helps in all respects.
Go ahead, Alan. All right, I guess that's me, right?
Yeah.
I'll go if you want.
All right. Yeah, you read the next two paragraphs.
All right. One cannot enter into the kingdom of God unless one is perfectly cleared of all sins. The material sins are products of our desires to lord it over material nature. It is very difficult to get rid of such desires. Women and wealth are very difficult problems for the devotee making progress on the path back to Godhead. Many stalwarts in the devotional line feel victims to these allurements and thus retreated from the path of liberation. But one is helped by the Lord himself. The whole process becomes as easy as anything by the divine grace of the Lord.
Go ahead,
To
read that.
become, I'm sorry, I got it. I had to hold on. To become the restless of the contact of women and wealth is not an astonishment, because every living being is associated with such things from remote time, practically immemorable, immemorable, and it takes time to recover from the foreign nature. But if one is engaged in hearing the glories of the Lord, gradually he realizes his real position. By the grace of God, such a devotee gets sufficient strength to defend himself from the state of disturbance, and gradually all disturbing elements are eliminated from his mind.
Text 18. Nasta prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloka bhagavati bhakti bhavati naistiki. Synonyms: Nasta, destroyed; prayeshu, almost to nil; abhadreshu, all that is inauspicious; nityam, regularly; bhagavat, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, or the pure devotee; sevaya, by serving; bhagavati, unto the personality of Godhead; uttama, transcendental; shloke, prayers; bhakti, devotional loving service; bhavati, comes into being; naistiki, irrevocable. Translation: by regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and rendering of service to pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Go ahead, Zoe.
Okay. Here is the remedy for eliminating all inauspicious things within the heart, which are considered to be obstacles in the path of self-realization. The remedy is the association of the Bhagavatas. There are two types of Bhagavatas, namely the book Bhagavata and the devotee Bhagavata. Both the Bhagavatas are competent remedies, and both of them or either of them can be good enough to eliminate the obstacles. A devotee Bhagavata is as good as the book Bhagavata, because the devotee Bhagavata leads his life in terms of the book Bhagavata, and the book Bhagavata is full of information about the personality of Godhead and his pure devotees who are also Bhagavatas. Bhagavata book and person are identical.
Yeah, it's funny because New Vrindavan used to be filled with mud because they didn't have any like really paved or brick roads or anything. And so, we used to have boots, and they'd call it, the devotees are walking books. But in New Vrindavan, they are walking books with boots on. So go ahead, Alan.
The devotee Bhagava is a direct representative of Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. So by pleasing the devotee Bhagava, one can receive the benefit of the book Bhagava. Humans' reasons fail to understand how, by serving the devotee Bhagava, or the book Bhagavata, one gets gradual promotion on the path of devotion. But actually, these are facts explained by Srila Narayana Devaya. Is that? I'm sorry.
Narada Muni is who he's talking about.
Yeah, who happened to be the maidservant son in his previous life. The maidservant was engaged in the menial service of the sages, and thus he also came into contact with them. And simply by associating with them and accepting the remnants of foodstuff left by the sages, the son of the maidservant got the chance to become the great devotee and personally sorry, what was that again?
Narada
Dev. These are the miraculous effects of the association of the Bhagavatas. And to understand these effects practically, it should be noted that by such sincere association of the Bhagavatas, one is sure to receive transcendental knowledge very easily, with the results that he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. The more progress is made in devotional service under the guidance of the Bhagavatas, the more one becomes fixed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The message of the book Bhagavata, therefore, have to be received from the devotee Bhagavata, and the combination of these two Bhagavatas will help the neophyte devotee to make progress on and on.
So this is a really important point, because it shows by example of the effect of association with devotees. See, Narada Muni was a maidservant's son. A maidservant is like a menial servant. And he was helping his mother, and during the rainy season, these sages were, they kind of like sometimes in India during the rainy season, they don't travel around as much because it's raining all the time. So they stay in one place for like 4 months during the monsoon seasons. And so she was serving these devotees, and her son, maidservant son, not educated, not particularly qualified in any way, just served these devotees and listened to their conversations about Krishna, and by permission took some foodstuffs from them. Now, so whoever you hang out with, if you hang out with sinners and debauchees and drunks and crackheads, you're going to become like that. But if you hang out with devotees, you're going to become like that. And so the effect of serving the devotees, Narada Muni became purified. And in the next kalpa, which is like a whole day of Brahma, like 4 billion years, he took birth as a son of Lord Brahma. He was the saint among the demigods. He became the transcendental spaceman. He was the greatest saint of the demigods, and he could travel from anywhere in the universe, even up to the spiritual world, in the blink of an eye. So that is the effect of serving the devotees and just listening to them and accepting the remnants of their foodstuff. So we only have a minute left. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, can I ask one real quick?
Sure.
So I noticed today at this new job that there's a peacock feather, and I've been praying, and I kind of been noticing, I guess, is a third class devotee, is it like where you see, like we can only, we like to hear, we like to read about them, we like the preaching, and can you also see like material things as a way to see Krishna, but not, we can't see him because of our material eyes, but can you can he appear in some way where you're like, hey, there's a peacock feather or something like that?
Everything that reminds you of Krishna can whatever reminds you of Krishna, that's also Krishna. So a neophyte devotee means that you're like, you have material desires, you have faith, but your faith isn't really firm to the point where you can understand the scriptures. And since the